I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight, and appreciate you coming, and I hope you have your questions all ready for Jan. And as indicated in the email, Jan is moving back to the Czech Republic, but that's not to be construed as his last time necessarily here with us. He will be coming back from time to time. Maybe it's once a year, maybe it's twice, but we're going to nab him when he does come back, and so I'm sure we'll have a few more lectures in the future. So we look forward to that. Jan, over the last, I don't know, how long has it been, 6, 7 years, I know that he has been speaking. We started, I think, at Annie's bookstore on 16th Avenue. We went through probably for about half a dozen or a dozen people. And then we moved to this facility later on, and during the course of this period of time, he's presented a lot of topics, very interesting topics, and started recording them here back, I guess, when we started here probably 4 or 5 years ago. And we've accumulated quite a few tapes and topics. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send out to you a list of all the topics and the dates that Jan has spoken. And if anyone's interested in those tapes, you can just let me know, and I will get them produced on DVD, and then we'll arrange for you to pick up those tapes. I don't know what it will cost, but it can't be that much just to make a duplicate from this 8-millimeter tape to DVD. So just have that in mind. The list will be going out to you sometime during the next couple of weeks. So, I think we've enjoyed these lectures, and since I have you on my list, I don't know if it's really necessary that we quit having lectures, and it has occurred to me that if there is sufficient interest, that we could arrange to have, in Jan's absence, while he's not with us, perhaps other speakers come here who are willing to be so gracious as Jan to speak for no charge. Jan once said, I asked him whether we should be charging for an honorarium, and he said, no, that's not necessary. If we were to charge, no one would be able to afford it. So consequently, we have had no charge for this, and I think we'll just continue on with that policy, since the government of Alberta has made this facility available to us for free, which has been good. So we keep our costs down to zero. So I like to have Jan address us tonight, and as I indicated, I hope you have come with your questions. This is a time for you to ask whatever you may think that he would have an answer to, which gives us a lot of latitude, particularly esoteric areas, spiritual, philosophical, and I think that the 2 hours will go by quite quickly tonight. So, Jan, I'll turn it over to you at this time, and let you take it from here.
Well, thank you very nicely introducing me here, as usual. Well, it's a very sad, in a way, that I have to stop this lecturing business and move to my old country, but that's life, we cannot control the way life takes us, and you have to go with the flow. And I have retired just recently from my work after many years in industry. Very exciting work, and I was asked to leave. All the colleagues and all, they've been all shocked when I told them, and really they still are smarting from it, because they have never thought I would ever leave, and so there was never any replacement or any effort to sort of find somebody, so they are in a vacuum as usual. Now it's the government, and it's taking action, and what the definition of action is. It's a response to a vacuum. It was created by previous failure, so that's basically what's happening there. But I thought that I should probably speak to you today in very general terms and respond to the questions, since over the years all kinds of people came to me and asked me, what do you think about that, what is this or that. So in a way, I thought that'd be a nice thing to clarify some of the things. And obviously, if you have no questions, I will continue talking. But I thought that since this is our last lecture in a sort of more regular terms. I'll be here definitely at least once a year, maybe twice a year, for at least next 5 years or so. So I would definitely make sure with Neil that he knows about my arrival and we can fix something to talk about other things. And you don't know very much about my life and my interests outside of what I've been talking about. So there's lots of other areas which are equally fascinating, but we cannot sort of pour out everything, at the same time. So anyway, here I am, and I would prefer if you ask me and I answer. If not, I would obviously very happily and talk about things in a spirit we normally tend to have our lectures. So, okay, here we go. Yeah.
I would like to know a little bit about ley lines in North America.
Okay, well, these ley lines, are looked upon as some sort of energy imprints, anomalies which might happen in a matrix of energy field of the Earth. The theory of ley lines, is really something which came to forth in the last 25, 30 years through the work of certain people who are dowsers, people who look for waters and all that stuff. They call it geopathic zones in more scientific terms, and basically these ley lines, when they sort of cross, they emit energies which sometimes might not agree with our health and all. So you need to sort of be able to find them. Some sensitive people are able to do it. But honestly and truly, I have known leading researchers in this area who definitely done tremendous amount of work, and more I was listening to them, more I was watching these practitioners who tend to sort of determine the ley lines and how to sort of avoid their effects. More I started to believe that maybe there is more psychic connection than the field of its own, and then we tend to sort of create certain condition, either subconsciously or sometimes even consciously, which then would respond to us in a feedback mechanism and would behave in a way that would reaffirm our belief that these things are really there. And the reason about it is because of the inconsistencies of determining these ley lines. There is no actual measurement, a device which will be 100% accurate. So you click it on, like a voltmeter or something, and say, okay, here is the ley line, here is not the no. It's usually a sensitive individual who somehow will tell you, yeah, I sense it, and there it is, and all. So over many years of research, I was very careful trying to jump into conclusion by saying they do exist or they don't exist. There is no doubt about it that our Earth has all kind of fusions, all kind of weaknesses overall in its envelope, and that maybe energy fields, in some ways might be distorted. And because we are responding only, the most likely, to the weakest energy fluctuations and deviations, we might feel these effects, Now, these ley lines might be also some sort of a matrix lines, There is a guy in Australia, in New Zealand, Bruce Maccabee, who wrote quite a few books on these, in his books on bioharmonics 1, bioharmonics 91, bioharmonics 6, 1, and 3, and he created a whole atlas of ley lines, which you can superimpose on a globe. And you can actually see all these energy points, how they are distributed and everything else. And like I said, I've been in England and I lived in Scotland, and I used to go to Findhorn and around the people who believe in these things quite extensively. And more I was watching them, more I felt that it was subjective rather than objective phenomenon. Now, whether this is true or no can be determined later, but as long as you believe something, it's the same as if it was like that, So if you believe that you have something wrong with the energy stream under your bed, and you move your bed and you feel better, then you feel, yeah, I avoid that effect, you know. But the point is that when energy is energy. When we talk about energies, like the airlines might be a sort of very big energies, that's a very quantitative and very objective phenomenon, and you can develop the measurements. If you cannot do that, and you rely purely on impressions of determining it, then, you know, it's very difficult, because I don't know about any scientific tests, and I've done quite a test here, actually, at Calgary University. He's one of the guys who was doing this work in dowsing, you know. And we were going into the fields and testing, you know, different sensitivity of different dowsers in control experiments, you know. And we were looking for any energy vibrations, any ley lines, anything we could sort of sense and interpret. And we really were not that accurate, you know. So 10 people would read different readings. They would point to that sort of energy streams in different places, and generally it was quite messy. So I would say that it's a very interesting topic, and there's a lot of promise, but from the spiritual point of view, which I'm interested the most, I would say I don't see very much, you know, usefulness in it. From the health point of view, if ley lines are definitely something which may affect your health or your energy field, then maybe it's very good to look into it. But
it was brought to my attention when I was kind of investigating this that oftentimes people that are particularly creative, say artists, will oftentimes collect and live, you know, in close proximity to each other. Like you'll find certain towns or villages or whatever where you'll just see this cluster of, you know, creativity. And so the question was, is it due to this?
Yeah, well, you know, this is it, you know, there is a certain tendencies of certain people to gather at certain places, you know. Now, somebody has to be first who starts it, you know, and then he says to somebody, well, you know, and that's how it goes. There was this book by Paul Burton called Message from Annapurna, which is a very good book, actually, if we ever find it, you know. And he speaks about the holy hill, you know, holy, and he says the hill is not holy because of its place, but by the holiness of people who made it, you know. And I think that the same with all these places, you know. The place is place. Up to a certain point, nobody gathers there, has no real significance, it has not been responded to. At a certain point, it does become focus. And more you enforce it, more you create that new consciousness, more powerful that feedback works. And then you're feeding that area with energy, and that energy vibrates, synchronized with your own level of perception. And it's like everything else, you know. I remember I used to be a member of Subud, which is a sort of a philosophical, spiritual type of movement established in India by sort of chap called Bapak. He's dead now, but he was quite a strong individual, and at a certain point he had millions of followers. And Subud is all over the world, you know, in the centers everywhere. But there is that one room, which is the hall where everything happens. And they have this place, they call it Latihan. Latihan means a sort of a place for letting go and communicating with the cosmic force, creator, whatever everybody sort of believes in. And let once and go mean that forces will descend on you and possess you and make you behave certain way involuntarily, you know. So if you are at a Latihan, it's like being in a loony bin somewhere, you know. People are laughing, some of them are barking, crawling on the floor, rolling. Doesn't matter what comes to you, you express it, you know. The reason why I'm saying it is that that room was in an ordinary building, but was dedicated purely to Latihan. So nobody else would go to that room for any other purpose. So over the years, this room soaked this energy of this mental whatever it is, to the point that I had no idea that it was a Latihan room. But when they showed me the building and I stepped into that room, it really flipped me over. I felt such a jolt of energy, so much, you know, different from any other room and everything, that I immediately responded and said, oh, what was that, you know. And so this way, they knew that I was actually responding to this force, you know, and I was eligible to become part of that thing. So those are the tests. But point is that if you focus on something and you're charging it with your sort of emotions or feelings, eventually it becomes really, it's like accumulator, you know, and so that might be the explanation. Any question? Anything else? Yes?
Dan, a couple of years ago, you told us about the story about the doctor from east of Canada who actually telephoned you to say the fishermen over there had complained of headaches. And when they actually x-rayed his head, they found he had no brain whatsoever.
Yeah.
And you've also in the video of the BBC back in Great Britain of people who were school teachers and office managers who had no brain at all in their head.
Yeah.
And the question I'd like to ask you is, you know, if they have no brains, where is their intelligence coming from?
That's a very good question. First, that is true. There is a lot of people who live and they have no brains, you know. Now, we don't know how many of them, because how do you know you have no brain? You know, most of the time they discover that purely by accident. Somebody gets killed in an accident, there is an autopsy, and they discover there's no brain. Or the guy goes to a hospital and they do a CAT scan for whatever reason, and they say, well, our CAT scan isn't working, it's showing just the hole in the head, you know, and then they tried again, and sure enough, there is no brain. So I have been in touch with a gentleman who was a leading proponent of these people without brain. He was a British surgeon, he was a pediatrist, Professor Orber, and he wrote over 500 scientific papers in his life. And he has tested many children without brains, and he wrote a paper which was a summary of 598 people whose brain was minimum 95% missing, you know, so and some of them had actually no brain at all, you know, just sort of liquid, you know, fuel in their heads. And so we communicated. The reason why I was saying about it, because I knew the doctor in Newfoundland, and one day we had a dinner, and he knew my interest, and he said, Jan, you know, I know you are interested about these things. I'm a psychologist also by training. So we had this patient who came, he was a fisherman, he complained about headaches. So we took him to our health center, and nothing showed wrong with him, so we gave him a CAT scan. And we thought it was not working because there was a big cavity, there was nothing, it's a skull, you know, nothing inside. So we tried again, but we couldn't believe it, so we did the surgery. We actually opened his head, and sure enough, there was no brain. So I said, we got very scared, we patched him up and gave him test memory, everything was fine, so gave him some pills, so he fixed himself up, and that was it. So I was very interested about it, and more I thought of it, I was determined to had a paper about it. So I contacted this Professor Orber, and I said, well, you know, I'm PhD in psychology here in Canada, experimental psychologist, and I discovered one of your guys, you know, I mean, he has absolutely no brain, and it was discovered by the doctors. I went to see a surgeon, actually, and I asked him, I said, well, what about this guy without a brain, you know? He said, yeah, it's true, we have the CAT scan. And I said, well, isn't it sort of like a bit strange, you know? I said, it's quite strange. I said, and you as a doctor didn't even show any interest to you. I said, oh no, I'm not here to investigate or do research. I'm just doing my work. And so over the years I've seen lots of people who have these problems, you know, not as severe perhaps, but definitely of concern. So I wrote to Orber, and we communicated, and then I discovered I cannot write paper about it because guy was from Newfoundland, and I thought, well, the way the people make jokes about these guys from Newfoundland, you know, that would not really go well for me and for anybody else. So I let it go, but as far as consciousness, that's the important point. Where is our consciousness? Well, that was the issue which I've been fighting all my life. Where is the consciousness? What is the consciousness? How the brain creates consciousness, which is traditionally believed, or how the consciousness superimposes itself over the brain and all that. My belief, based on lots of studies and lots of interest, and truly I don't want to fool myself, so my beliefs are what I truly believe rather than what I want you to believe, you know, is that the consciousness as such can exist without any body. It's non-corporeal. So the consciousness in a pure essence doesn't need to know itself by the virtue of having body. Consciousness is capable of existence, and it's eternal. That means that consciousness never been born, and consciousness will never cease to exist. It's eternal. Now, the awareness of itself is only possible sometimes through a reflection. So consciousness, by focusing itself, create a thought, and thought itself is sufficient enough to create an image which then consciousness recognizes as being sort of something of herself, of a consciousness, and is different to any other fragment of consciousness. So, to me, consciousness does not reside in any specific part of the body. Consciousness could be at any part of the body, and experiment in psychic field clearly show that, that you can, under hypnosis and all, bring your consciousness to your knees or to your stomach. You can actually put your consciousness outside of you and communicate. And so basically I feel that we as an immortal being, which we truly are, because we are consciousness. That consciousness obviously does embody itself into a matter in order to become aware of itself and develop its own character, its own personality, and basically growth, because there is no such a thing as final stage of awareness. There is no such a thing as I am on the top of it and there is no way, no further to go. Everything evolves infinitely. As we live in an infinite universe, there is an infinite concept of creation which rolls, and we are continuously moving ahead. So our consciousness, thousands years ago perhaps, was very different consciousness than consciousness today we have, because we have accumulated so much information over the lives and so much we have learned which form our personality and our character, and that would continue. So even nobody can really conceive what is the highest level of consciousness in existence. We can only speculate about, like, for example, God. That's the highest consciousness in this universe we know of. But I have got information through studies, through different communications, that there are other universes, and that beings there, on level of awareness and consciousness, so to speak, on a spiritual awareness, are higher than, let's say, God as we imagine it, So it is very difficult for me to say, and everything is moving, so we never catch up. As you evolving, everybody ahead of you evolving too. So we are going in a sort of like being a river of time. We are all floating in its own, space, and we are developing, but we never sort of reaching a point where we fully develop. More we opening ourselves, more we changing. So the change of awareness and change of essence, might be beyond our grasp, very much beyond our grasp, even in this dimension. And if you go and evolving like that for eons of years, it's hard to imagine what will happen to us. In some philosophies it is believed that each of us, each individual, is potentially the creative force, no different from God, and that eventually we graduate to the level of awareness that we will be capable of creating our own stars, our own planets, because infinite concept of cosmic creation doesn't allow in a finite size and finite potentiality, because anything which is material have to start first with a thought or a concept. So all universe is not a random creation, expansion of gases and matter in every direction as we tend to believe. It's a very conscious design which is necessary for the universe to fulfill its purpose of development of souls, of consciousness, because consciousness is at every level. Our consciousness is different than the consciousness of advanced being. Our consciousness is different than consciousness of animals and trees and rocks, but everything has its own level of consciousness. I remember I read one psychic, some paper which was dictated by a psychic who was able to communicate with electrons, and he was able actually writing these answers, and said, why we cannot see you, talk to this electron, and why we don't know so much about it. And he said, because you're using your physical light, which is too strong. If you focus that light on us, you destroy us. In order to understand us, you have to use much finer level of awareness, spiritual light, and then you can continue. We have never learned to shine a spiritual light on things. We tend to always shine the physical light on something, but once we learn how to shine a spiritual light, the whole new world opens in front of us, you know, and our understanding will start to be very different than what only eyes can see and hands can touch and all that stuff, you know. So I would say that consciousness is forever, and we are that consciousness in individualized forms, but still, you know, vibrating through the same universal frequencies. So when we don't have body, which itself prevent us from being aware of the magnitude of our potential in existence, once we don't have that body, we much better understand who we are. But not everybody is at the same level, so there are different levels of consciousness. Okay, anything else? Yeah.
You've traveled quite a bit in Canada with your job. I just wondered if you found any particular place that you have a certain feeling about, or more energy, or that something like going to this place in India.
Yeah,
or
well, you know, that's something I've been wrestling many times. Where is a place one can sort of feel, visit, you know? Where is a place when spiritually, otherwise, you know, you fulfill all your search and get a satisfaction? And I've been to some wonderful places. And like I said, last year I went twice to Ecuador, you know, to a place called Vilcabamba, which is the famous little village where people live well over 100 years. That's the place where the oldest people in the world lives, you know. And nobody knows why. They've been studying it for over 30 years. There are books about it, all people of Andes and all kind of stuff, Les Viejos and all that, these times. And so there was a paradise, you know. I felt, you know, that if I had to sort of choose a place at that moment where I want to stay forever, I would say that's the place. But then more I thought of it, more I realized that every place, you know, doesn't matter how it looks, it carries its own sort of secrets, and it comes to haunt you or bite you, you know. And sometimes what at the beginning looks as a beautiful dream, in a couple of years or months or whatever, might become a nightmare, you know. And I'll give you an example. I was there first time, and there was a wonderful couple, Brian O'Leary, who is a former astronaut, and his wife, she's an artist. And he wrote a bunch of books, you know, Brian O'Leary on consciousness and awareness. And so they choose to live actually in Vilcabamba. So they're building center there for conscious awareness and all that stuff. So I visited them first time, and they were all wonderful and dreaming about, you know, what they would do and how, you know, it is different, what a paradise they found, what a Shangri-La it is, you know. And then when I visited the second time, there was a rift between him and his wife. They splitting pretty well because she couldn't stand it anymore, you know, and she, instead of being creative, she felt she was stifled. The contact with the Western way of living and civilization was more embodied than she thought, you know. And I would say that the place which is the best is the place when you feel the best. You have to put your mind into the place and create the place, you know. So if you are a truly spiritual person, you should not be affected by the physical surrounding, and you can be happy and in paradise even if you are in a hellhole. Many cases of these are shown, you know. And I stopped looking for the ideal place because I discovered that it's in the eye of the beholder, depending what's brought into that place. And there is no such a thing as a permanency. Like I said, you see these people who are living in these paradise places, and you envy them, saying, how come, you know, I wish I had a chance and all. But then these people don't see that way very frequently. It's become mundane for them. Some of them are bitching, you know, they want to leave, looking for other opportunities. So I would say that obviously there are certain places because of its history. And as I was talking about, pumping energy into the field, so lots of people gathered to a certain place. There was a certain vibration about them, there's certain thoughts, certain affinities, and the place picks it up and radiates it. So when you go into the sphere of influence of that place, it drags you in because it sort of, you read it, you know, so you feel good and all. It's like a place of horror or something, you know, because of suffering, you know, you step into a place like that and you can actually feel physically ill and all that stuff. So there's no difference of being in nirvana and all. But like I said, the place is not holy because of its physical location. It's by the holiness of people who made it, you know. So if you go there to pray and everything else, you turn it into a shrine, you become holy.
How do you explain, if you go to a place, a particular place, and when you go there, you feel your senses are much more heightened every time you go there? How do you explain that?
Like I said, you know, there are places which, because of its particular location by the field of energies which radiate, natural radioactivity and other energies, might cause a certain distortion in your own energy fields, you know. They weaken you up, you open more. And that sort of other thing is that when there is a, you see, there is a world we live in, which is world visible, and then the world which surrounds us is world invisible. The world invisible is as real as the world visible, except we don't know it. But these spirits, these angels, these entities on the other side do have a quite a close contact with each of us, and their effort is to help us, to lead us to a conscious awareness, to level our consciousness, to increase our spirituality, to fulfill our purpose we have in these bodies. And if you go to this place, which is frequently, you know, associated with this type of things, the gathering of these forces is also much stronger. And I feel that when you get to these places, it would do something to you. Again, it's not sort of consistent. You know, you might feel that way, but the body with you, nothing. You know, so it's individual sensitivity. You predispose yourself. It's like, you know, you're preparing yourself for something. So when the time comes, you recognize what you've been preparing yourself for much better than somebody who have never done so. If you sensitize yourself to certain things, when you spiritually grow, because evolution is both, it's physical and spiritual. As far as physical evolution goes, you know, we are pretty well fixed. You know, the body we have now is a final design at this time brought about by the spirits who jumped into our bodies and needed it. So they tried all kind of things in the past and it wasn't working well, so they let it go, they created new, and now we are in that stage. But the body itself doesn't have any capacity. The body is only a shell. It's the suit we wear, so to speak. And everything which is alive comes from the spirit, which animates the body. When that spirit decides to quit and pulls out, the body is dead as a dodo. It doesn't matter whether there is nothing wrong with you physically, you'll be just dead. And the doctor would say, he's dead. And you ask him, well, what's left? You know, they would not know. I said, sometimes back, I was very concerned about this issue as to when the consciousness leaves, what would happen, and what is the so-called artificial maintaining of life in hospitals. And the best example for me was when you always define the death, you know, as your heart stops, you know, you have no more breathing, no more oxygen, you know, the heart stops, brain dies, and you are dead, you know. And that's a pretty well still believed, you know, doctor looks into your eye, shine into it, no reflexes, listen, put a mirror and all that stuff. Anyway, so the heart was considered as a seed of life, you know. Well, when first the heart transplant patient, you know, in Africa, South Africa, Dr. Barnard's patient, his name was Clark, Dr. Clark, he was dentist, you know, in 1968, with his artificial heart, I was very keen to actually see what would happen, because nobody before lived without a heart, just with a pump. And I thought, well, when the heart goes, you know, that's it, you know, there'll be no more, because conscious life is in the heart and all, you know, you cannot. Well, he got his pump and I went on. He was ticking, you know. Well, I was quite happy with that the heart wasn't actually a seed of consciousness or life. At the same time, what happened was very interesting, because I read some psychological studies on Dr. Clark, you know, and he was chosen as a patient because he was total atheist. He never believed in life after death. He had no notion of spirituality. He purely believed body is everything. So they felt he would have no hang-ups, you know, mentally and otherwise, you know, he would better handle this operation. But what happened was, he started to have real experiences, in a hospital. He saw himself walking in the corridors, out of the body and stuff like that. So there's a lot of psychiatrists working on him, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And what was interesting, when he died, when he died, normally when you die, your heart stops, no? In his case, he had no heart. He had a pump which was pumping. So when he died, the pump was still pumping. So his body temperature was 37 degrees, his pulse rate was about 70. He was artificially maintained in a life which could have been continued pretty well indefinitely if somebody was feeding him and all. But doctors decided he was dead, because suddenly all the, sign of life, brain waves and all disappeared and all. So I always asked myself, what's left? What was died? The heart was pumping. There was no sign of a guy dying, but at a certain moment he was alive, and the moment after he was dead. As far as doctor goes, he was alive, because you take his temperature, take his pulse, everything was just... So anyway, so that was the first eye-opener for me as far as consciousness, body and spirit and all that stuff, So anyway, any other question? Don't be shy, yes? Okay.
I'm very aware that you have this kind of background in education, but I'm also aware of the high consciousness that you have that you're able to communicate to us the way you do. So what do you attribute your high consciousness and awareness to? Your education, former lives, attuning, what brought you to...
Well, in my case, like I said, it was a fluke, it was not a conscious development of myself as a sort of individual growth. Actually, I never told you maybe that story, but when I was a young boy, I wasn't smart at all. I was quite stupid, actually. To the point that a teacher called me, and to really elaborate on it, my sister, who is 1 year younger, she was as stupid as I was. But she never underwent transformation, so she never went to normal school. She went to a school for handicapped slow learners, and she have barely learned her trade. And she's a wonderful woman, the most kind and helping. She's an angel, and if I go to visit her town, people will stop me and say, Dr. Merta, your sister is a real angel. She's helping everybody inside. She, for over 30 years, without any remuneration, she takes care of all people, animals, going shopping for people, cleaning their windows, turning them in the beds, whatever is needed, she will never say no. She's a wonderful woman, which I wish I was like. I visited there just recently, and just to give you an example, we go on a street in a town, 9 o'clock evening, with rainy drizzle, and I'm trying to get quickly to an apartment, and she goes, and suddenly she sees on a sidewalk about half a kilometer from where she lives, a broken glass. She looked over it and said nothing, and then we got home. She took the broom, and I said, where are you going? She said, well, I had to go to clean that broken glass on the sidewalk. I said, what do you mean, broken glass? She said, well, the poor little animal, somebody be walking there, step into it and cut his feet, So, I mean, these are the things which are so unplanned, it hits you in the right place, So that's my sister. But as far as mentality goes, there is something missing. The moment you look on her, the moment you ask her questions, you realize that you don't dealing with full-fledged, intellectual, she's a gifted person in a way that she's right about people, She sees through it all because she's not contaminated. But I was very bad like her. And I remember the doctor called me, the teacher called me and said, Jan, we've been watching you and your progress in a classroom is not good. And we feel that you'll be better doing if you join your sister in a special school, because they give you more attention. No, you will not be able to catch up with the rest of the students. Every year is getting more intensive and all. So I told the guy, I said, well, I'm sorry to hear that. I would prefer to give me a chance, And he said, well, what we do is we let you go to the grade 5, but if you don't do good, we'll immediately shift you with your sister. Well, I didn't do very much about it. I absorbed the knowledge. But then, during the summer, it took me years to figure out what happened. I was lying in my bed, and the sunshine was shining through the window, and my grandma went to a church. I had no mother at that time. She died when I was 9. And father when I was 1 year. So anyway, I watched that beautiful stream of sun shining through the window, and suddenly, without any warning, I felt within me something was spinning. So violently was spinning that I was holding on a bed, on the sheets of the bed, and shaking and sweating so profoundly that I was soaking the sheets under me and around me. And this process lasted about a minute, maybe more. It's hard for me. It looked like forever. But at that point, I felt like some centrifugal force was pushing me down to the bed. I felt so dizzy. I felt so frightened because of this experience that I couldn't move because of the force which was pushing me to this bed. And when it stopped, I had a feeling in my mind. I saw darkness, and I saw a sort of like a light, like a star or something, shooting from my right side to the left over my mental horizon. And as that was moving, watching it, I got an indistinct feeling that somehow there is connection between me and that light, and that when that light disappeared, I felt free. That thing dropped all this shaking, and I'm shaking. I mean, like you take a plastic bag, put the garbage and put into a blender, and then you just mix it all, and that's how I felt. My skin was like a big container for everything else we was mixing together. When it stopped, for a moment I had a certain dizziness still because of that tremendous violent vertigo, and I was afraid to sit because I felt I would fall back to the bed, and that stabilized it. Like you, as a kid, you play this game, you put a stick and then you turn around, and then after about 20 turns or something, you try to open the door and you're going opposite direction. That's exactly how I felt. When it all sort of stabilized, I realized that I was still me as far as my memory goes, but I was a very different person. I jumped from the bed, and I was absolutely frantic to find a piece of paper and something to write with, and I wrote a poem. I was totally thrilled with my poem. Prior to that, 5 minutes prior to that, I never read a poem. I was not doing good at all in my language. I was actually failing it pretty well every exam. I wasn't at all any vocally sort of challenged or a talented person. I was very challenged. Anyway, I wrote that poem. And suddenly my mind was thinking in poems, and my mind developed a certain screen, which is written in a book, Exploring the Human Aura, which is about my work, and the story is described there. It was printed by Prentice Hall in 1973, and you can still get it easily in a second bookshop. You go on a search engine, Adal or AB Books or whatever, and punch Exploring the Human Aura by Merta and by Bushel, you'll find it. But anyway, that screen which I had was like a blue sky, sort of like a blue screen, and when I wanted to ask anything or to understand, I just asked, and in that moment there'd be a little dot which appears on that screen, light dot, like a point of light, and usually it started in a corner, and then when I would ask more about the issue, nothing would happen until I asked the right question. And when I asked the right questions, the thing moved, and when I got a complete understanding, it got into the center. So I didn't need to know about anything. I need to just ask the right question. I would say, for example, is life on the moon? And nothing would happen. And so I would say, is life on the moon because there is life on Earth? And answer would, for example, come no. And I would say, why no? Is it because there is oxygen? And anyway, as I asked, everything would answer for me. So I never needed to study. When that got connected, I had a complete understanding. It's like a reversal. You have something and you're taking it apart, and you get understanding, and you can put it back together, rather than if I give you the bits and pieces and you don't know how it looks and how it should look. So anyway, these things helped me so fast that within a year, I was one of the top students in my classroom. At the end of 2 years or 3 years when I graduated, I was the best student in the school. I was published poet, I was considered very promising, actor, and I played in all kind of stuff. I was gravitating towards anything which was creative, philosophical, and generally it never left me. So I lost that screen now. in a sense. I don't have this mechanism, but I do have an intuitive understanding, so I don't need to know very much. All what I need to know is to ask the question. That's why, for example, Neil knows me, I can describe a lot of things about people and events, I don't need to know anything, actually. Less I know, better, because it doesn't contaminate my mind, it doesn't need to, and it just comes out. So the higher consciousness is working, but it was not something which I have developed. It just happened by fluke. All my life, I studied reasons what happened to me. That's why I went into psychology. That's why I done online, because I wanted to understand. I was always worried that if something happened to me so wonderful, what would happen if it stopped working and undo itself and go back to my previous state, then I would be down coffee, And so I was worried. So I was looking always for ways to prevent that and learning about all kind of level of consciousness and cosmic consciousness and people like me, looking for somebody like me, somebody who can confirm that. It was only about 5 years ago I finally got a satisfactory answer what happened to me. I was reading a book about some of these enlightened people in India, like Gopi Krishna and all these people, truly big names, and they were talking about Kundalini energy, awakening of Kundalini, and when that cosmic creative energy enters you, it's a serpent, violent serpent, which can burn you out, can destroy your mind, become insane and all. And you cannot simply predict the Kundalini surge by working towards it. You cannot go to a classroom and say, okay, fine, here is a classroom, how to open your Kundalini. It just happens. It's just something which you don't understand on what principle it works. But there was one unmistakable sign which connected with all the behavior I had, that spinning, energy surges, perspiration, everything was burning, rearranging my nervous system probably, my consciousness was changing. But one thing which convinced me about that it was Kundalini was that there was a quotation from the old book of Indian scriptures, going back to like 5th century, and they're talking, one of the unmistakable signs of awakening Kundalini, insatiable desire for a person to write poetry. And I nearly dropped that, because that was exactly what happened to me. And when I studied, let's say, Gopi Krishna, all his writing is in poetry. And so I felt that by fluke of some kind, condition was created with the light streaming to my room, maybe creating some vibration, attracting my consciousness, unlocking something, which triggered that instantaneous change. So from a guy who had a very simple future, I turned out to be different. It bothered me, because my life changed and I become very different. But that curiosity, that hunger for knowledge have never left me. I'm constantly buying books, constantly reading. I cannot stop thinking. I go on a bus and standing, and my mind is working continuously in a cosmic concept. I think about universe, I think about consciousness, I think about spirits, that's how I don't think about normal things, I'm sometimes so alienated, I feel I'm just hanging on the earth, purely by, fingernails, because my consciousness is so different, and I'm always to bring myself to reality. But I can fly off, no problems. I'm totally unhampered by circumstances. Maybe it was my profession which called for a total calmness. I used to be, all my life I spent deep sea diving. I used to be a deep sea diver personally, then I was a supervisor, and for 25 years I was a chief inspector of diving for Canada. I've seen horror stories in my life, people dying, being involved in rescue situations, and the calmness is necessary. So I developed certain calmness. I hardly get excited because the brig is falling from the roof. I would immediately think how to avoid that brig rather than standing there being frozen. I think to the last. I don't have any surge in panic. I've noticed that many times in life in that situation that I was able to observe myself and my behavior to the last, and I felt that I've never lost focus, and there to the last is a solution which I consider the best at the time. So in a way, I've developed all kind of, and like for example, I have this ring here, and if you read that ring, there is an inscription which reads, "This too will pass, And I've wear this ring for many, many years. And it came from the story of Sufi parables about this very powerful lord of the region there somewhere who had absolutely everything he wanted. He was so spoiled that he could ask and he got. So one day he was very bored, and so he called his wise men and told them, listen guys, you know, I want something which makes me happy when I'm unhappy. And when I'm happy, makes me sad. So they thought of it, and eventually they gave him the ring with the inscription, which read, "This too will pass." And when he was happy and looked on it, you know, his face went down. And he was unhappy and looked on it, his smile appears, you know. And the other version of that is about, you know, the same story. They gave that ring to this king, you know, and said, but don't look on it until you are in absolute dearest needs. In a situation there is absolutely no time to waste anymore. You can see what is written there. So he was fighting the army and he was cornered in a terrible situation. He saw his finished, he'd be killed any minute. So he said, well, nothing to lose. I can look on that ring. So he pulled it off and he read it, and there was written, "This too will pass." He survived and life went on. So anyway, the point is, you know, that I've been using that ring as a sort of an equalizer. So in the past, when I was younger, I had more energies and I was prone to sometimes to emotional response, you know. Get upset on somebody because it was stupid or whatever, too happy, unhappy, you know. So I've been wearing this ring, and every time, you know, there's a situation, I run off the handle, I just look on the ring and just come down, this too will pass. So very frequently, I hate flying. I'm in a turbulence, everything is jumping around, you know. I look on the ring and this too will pass. Life goes on, you know. So we always need certain mantra. And so that's what happened to me. When I was young, I underwent a rapid transformation. And because of that, I studied cognitive psychology. I tried to figure out what happened. More I asked, more confusing the answers were, more I realized that the only way I can figure out is to just dwell into all these other subjects which nobody knows very much about. Maybe there'll be an answer there. And I said, eventually I came to the answer that, yes, I have underwent physical transformation as far as, you know, Kundalini energy goes, done something to my nerve network, you know, in my brain, rewire it so I can perceive and receive higher form of information and consciousness when I don't need to use a logic, so to speak, which is a crutch for a much faster way. It's better to know than to look for answers, you know. And so I got this awareness, and that awareness always showed me well. My intuitivity and all was never cultivated. It's in me, and I take it as an ordinary life. And like I said, I've been very successful in everything what I have done because of this certainty I have within, that whatever I want, I develop certain truisms, certain beliefs, and beliefs are so important to us because it makes us, not what we think, but what we believe. The beliefs are more important and more forming our character than our logic. You might believe that you get, let's say, certain illness, and that will be much stronger than your logic, which tells you you cannot get it, you know. Thought can be changed. The belief usually tends to linger, especially if it is belief forgotten, you know, from childhood, embedded in it somewhere and working with magic. So I very much believe that our thought, which is part of our consciousness, creates a reality by filling the void with matter and with events to reflect that what thought conceived, you know, and what consciousness wishes, you know. So I never struggle against life. I feel, let's all happen. The spirits around us sense us from the high frequencies, and they try to help us. So for example, I'm moving to Czech Republic. Give you an example. I have a house, it's like a warehouse for a printing shop or something. I have so many books, you know. I have over 300 boxes of books alone, not to speak about other things. So to move it is the most horrifying experience for me, and I was avoiding to touch that issue because I knew that last time I was moving to the place, I was using 8 guys, and for 3 days we were driving the cars and unloading stuff into the basement, and I said, this would kill me, there's no way. So one of the things that I conceived was that I would buy a bed, memory foam bed, and take with me to Czech Republic, because after one thing men and retires need is a good bed, you know. So after that, I looked on the internet and there was not really equivalent bed in Europe. You know, they don't sell king size. They were two single ones joined together and they call it king size. So I said, well, I want to get a real king size and I want to get a real McCoy. So I went to the Eisenberg people there and I said, okay, show me your best bed, you know, and that's what I got. But the point is not the bed. The point is that before I did so, I thought I might as well search in a bargain finder and find maybe there'll be some bed cheaper than the one, you know, they were selling. And I said, I'll go and maybe you just... So anyway, there was a memory foam bed for sale. Well, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So I don't know why devil made me do it, but I decided to go there. It was quite a far on the other side of the place I live. I live in Northwest, and that was in Beddington somewhere, you know, and so... I'm not good in directions, you know, that's one thing I was not gifted. Whatever was given to me was taken on the other side, and for example, sense of direction, I don't have none. I need GPS to get from one room to the other. Anyway, so I go to this place, and I look on that bed, and I knew that that's not the bed I want, you know, after. This was a mistake of a mistake. It was a scruffy looking thing, not at all reflecting what I was looking for. It was a foam, but it was not a foam, memory foam as I sort of envisioned. So I apologized to the lady. I said, well, you know, I'm taking you with me to Europe and blah, 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 blah. And it's not sort of really I'm looking for, because I'm looking more than just for a mattress. I'm looking for the whole dumb thing, you know. She said, well, and how are you moving? You know, I said, well, I would have to move it through using container and all. She said, well, we have a moving company. I said, you must be kidding. You know, anyway, it just happened. The day this particular family I went to had a small moving company. So I didn't buy the bed, but I left my telephone number. So then your husband called me. He called me, just to make this story short. He came, he looked over my places, looked over it, said, there is no way you can move it yourself. It will kill you. He said, healthy, normal people would get ill by just thinking about it. He said, I'll move it for you, everything. Lock, stock, and barrel, you don't need to touch anything. I get my team, I have my storage space, I prepare everything. I have about 70 pictures. He said, I had no idea what to do. He said, we had to create a mirror and all. I had no idea. We would do it all coming Tuesday. And sort of I pay one fee and I don't need to do anything. But I said, sense my spirit, you know. How else that could happen? But it's become so normal with me, you know, that I don't get surprised. I'm just sort of always in the hands. Because when you have a certain forward approach to life, when you are daring in a way and you are willing to make the changes, all the forces on earth and universe conspire to help you. They're pushing you, they give you a chances, they remove the obstacles, they bring you the people. I've learned that all my life, so I never worry how I would do it. I never worry what would be next. I just put it into my head, that's what I do. I move, you know, and somehow everything happened. Like I was so worried about getting from my work, you know. After all these years, I developed a reputation and people love me and everything. I said, how do I explain it to them? That suddenly I decided to quit. They count on me so much, they're planning with me the next year inspection schedules, you know. Well, I got ill. I was hit by stroke, you know. I recovered from it purely by concentration. I never went to a doctor. I was paralyzed on my left side. I couldn't move, and I did it purely by breathing exercise, by concentration, and by help of my friends there, Joe and John, you know, who gave me all kind of assistance, you know. But when I went to a doctor here, I never said, yeah, you have a stroke, you know, you still have some residues, but because of that thing, you know, can you imagine? He said, you must not work anymore. You must immediately retire for medical reasons. Now, it solved me the problem. I didn't need to sort of explain why I'm leaving. They all felt so sympathetic with me. They felt so much for me. And to make even better, over the years, in 25 years in government, I have never been ill. So I've accumulated 330 days of sick leave. And if you don't take it, basically, you lose it. So always I thought of it, oh my God, I should have been more smart and just pretended I'm ill or something, you know. I would have at least had some time off. But now, because of that stroke, doctor made me permanently medically sort of unfit to work. So the government said, well, what we do is we'll pay you all your sick leave, but you can take it, so you don't need to be retired for the next 18 months. and you get your salary, and after that you can retire with extra 18 months of pension. Now, think about it, you know. These are things which are God-given gifts, you know, which I have never even planned, never wanted to misuse these gifts, you know, never wanted in my life, but drag myself to work always, and suddenly it all come to my benefit. So I learned in my life, you know, that we should never, ever question our destinies. We should just boldly make that decision and things would happen. When we start to think about happenings too much, we insert our own purely logic and limited experiences, and we can screw up the great pictures. So I never really rush into the decision. I feel, okay, this is my problem, something has to be done. I will say, let's sleep on it, you know. And then suddenly, you know, things happen. So the day before, I would not know what to do. The next day, you bump into somebody. Before you realize, the whole chain reaction happened. And I learned in life that's how we are led, you know. But we have forgotten our spirituality. We've forgotten that our consciousness, which we use for survival in everyday living, is only a small little speck compared to the infinite consciousness which we are in touch with. And that consciousness knows everything about us and what's good for us. But we have shielded ourselves. We built a brick house without windows, so the light can't get in. And we have to open these windows. We have to open our minds to a higher level of perception. And when you open a higher level of perception, then perception will become true, because life is infinite. The consciousness on different levels of frequencies do communicate, and you might receive it. And if you respond, you develop confidence. More things happen this way. More you believe, more you trust. As we say, you put your faith into the hands of God, you know. The scientific age killed all that, you know. We've been sort of conditioned to believe only in ourselves, in our own whatever. Well, gets you to know better. I discovered I'm a very logical person, but logic is the worst way to guide your life accordingly. It usually convinces you about certain solutions which turn out to be wrong. It leads you very frequently into wrong conclusions. All the words we have messed about is not for lack of logic. We have more clever people living today than ever. There's so many PhDs and so many different geniuses, you would say we should have no problem at all. When you look into it, you discover that it is always the farmer, the dumbest farmer, who has the biggest potatoes. You have to really let it go, you know. You have to really sort of just learn a different way of responding, you know. I mean, it's very difficult because you've been brought up in a certain way, but it's for your own good. Whether it's your health, whether it's your sanity, whether it's your relationship, you have to understand that we are not isolated. We are not a discrete unit which surrounds itself by a certain shell and nothing can affect them. Contrary, we are affected by everything. We might not know it. And smaller the deviation, as I said many times, the better is the effect. When I was doing experiments with magnets, I was using different strengths of magnetic fields to observe behavior of mice and studied behavior of fish, and I discovered that the smallest variation in a normal, you know, plus minus millivolts, left, right, milligauss to cause the most magnificent changes. And then as you increase the energy input, you decrease the effectiveness. And I did it when I did experiment using electric shocks. The smallest little electric shock to the feet of the mice created immediate response. When I was stupid and I increased the electric shock to get a better response, mice freeze and didn't jump because it was overwhelming. Then I discovered that's true in nature. We as a human body, we don't respond to the wide frequencies of radiation. Plus minus 5 degrees in body temperature is different between life and death. Anything more, 20, 100,000, million degrees left and right makes no difference. You'll be dead. Your temperature is 42 degrees, you know. You're gone pretty well. If it is 30 degrees, you're gone pretty well. And it is everything, radiation, everything. So I discovered that thought itself has a certain frequency pattern. And the smallest, as we say, the more subtle it is, more effective it becomes. So we think always in brutality, you know, we have to destroy it, to go after it, you know, to burn it down, to smash it into smithereens, but that's the wrong approach. It's the gentle, easy approach. Little breeze, you know, and you respond, you know, little increase in temperature, and you respond. If the temperature in a room gets too hot, you collapse, you know, but little discomfort and you start acting. And this is with everything. So I learned in my life that we are surrounded by the seas of energies. some of the energies are so awesome that we have nothing to do with them. If the energy touches you, you become sort of, you fry, high voltage, But there are little things, You rub your hand and you get a little static and you put it close to somebody's hairs and hair goes to your hand, Things like that, We respond very differently. We're sitting next to each other. We radiate certain fields. The fields mingle, and then one person has a certain distortion, creates certain vibration, you picks it up, and that we respond. It's a small little thing. I learned through years of research and study that it is the smaller things we should pay attention to, not the big things. That's why you get to know the person too. You don't judge people by the sort of exemplary behavior for the occasion, how you behave at a wedding or how you behave. You look and judge people by the small things, what they say and what they do in their ordinary lives, and that gives you the true picture, not how people pose themselves to behave and speak, And this is everything. I just learned that there is a certain principle behind which we have not really bothered to discover because of our arrogance and our ignorance, which goes hand in hand. We feel we know better. We feel, always, it's all these slogans, all this propaganda. You can be whatever, you want, putting unrealistic sort of realities to people. If you let it go to your own, you know what you want to be truly, you know your capabilities and all, and you achieve it. I achieved absolutely everything I wanted. Not because I had certain capabilities, but I have that desire. And that desire is more than drive. Whatever you shall desire, and you pray for it, you ask for it, you will get it. And it's true, once you have the desire embodied in you, you don't need to do more. You have put a call to the cosmic consciousness. Hey, listen guys, this is what I want to experience. This is what I want to be. And somebody answers that call for you, help you. So I feel that people who focus the most, who plan life the most rigidly, are usually the most disappointed people in many ways, because they have stick to the very limited path in life. They have not truly got a satisfaction very much. Only going, zigzag way and all, you explore. I've been driving across Canada for many years, small little towns, and nobody goes ever, except, the old people and all. And I learned more about Canada that way than I have ever studied any books and maps and all. You have to go sideways. You have to explore. You cannot sort of understand the heart of a place until you go to these places. And in our life, we must not move only through the big cities, so to speak, concepts, big things. We have to sort of let ourselves to be bothered by small things. Let ourselves to be worked upon by the invisible forces, because it is the only experience which makes transformation. Theoretical knowledge is good, but is not transforming. You can be as clever as you can recite the whole library of books, and you can be an idiot to start with in personal and other behavior. It's the only personal experience, so you seek experiences. You percolate, you filter it through your skin, so to speak, So never avoid life, A lot of people shut themselves to libraries, or to meditation centers, or to places where they escape, hoping that focus on the one thing will bring them what they're looking for. It's not the case. Most of the time, it is the life. That's why people who have lived the right life, experience a lot, whether it was good or bad, they usually become different people. Because it's not important at all in life how tough is your life, what setbacks you have to do, whether you are happy or unhappy. It's what it did to you at the end, what kind of person you become as far as your character. Because character is what will make you unique. And our purpose is to develop our character. So we are distinguished from everybody else, that we have something, which we identify very strongly as that's me, and give you that sense of individuality, control. And so I would always encourage people to live life, not to look very much, it might be a sort of discomfort, or might cost me money, These are the voices which try to take you. That's when I made that decision that I move. I made that decision. And everybody says, well, Jan, but are you crazy, And I said, no, because, we have to follow our sort of callings, and this is what I've done. And I've done it a number of times in my life. I emigrated. This will be my third emigration. I escaped in '68 to Canada, then I moved, emigrated to England, lived there for 9 years, then I moved again to Canada, and now I'm moving after 25 years again. Always overseas, back and forth. But that's the part of life. We must not be afraid. We have to do everything when the time is right. You know, when we do it, when we want to do it, that's the time to do it. I was saying probably once I lived in Egypt and I studied pyramids. And I will be going every day to these pyramids just to spend the time there with Bedouins and just do my own little thinking about. And I've seen buses and buses of tourists who would come to see the pyramids, you know. There'd be American tourists, North American tourists, doesn't matter. And the bus would stop. That huge pyramid. Everybody gets out of the bus. Ooh, what a pyramid. And then you discover that most of the people, being in the age and physical fitness, which prevented them to actually climb the stairs to get inside the pyramid. There were no elevators, there was nothing. You had to walk the steps through the long corridor, and it was physically challenging. So people dreamt about seeing pyramids. They might be young and thinking, well, one day when I retire, I have all this time and all the money, I'll go and see the pyramids. Finally it happened. They would take the journey, they arrive, and they discover the pyramid is not anymore open for them because they have missed their boat. And that's why I learned that if you want to see something, do something. Don't wait, don't postpone it. The situation might change. It will never happen. So be daring, because at the end of the day, like I said, it doesn't really matter whether you are right or wrong. It's what you learn from that experience. What makes the change in you is the experience. To dream about things, live in a virtual world, is not like living in a real world. So my research and life and all showed me that we have to trust, you know, ourselves. We have to stay by our decisions. And all what we need to do is to just express the sincere desire for certain things which we want to do or be. And when we do that honestly, we create the condition. Right away we send a call, and somebody picks it up somewhere, and things will be happening. Things will be happening in a way that it will be impossible for you to predict or to even comprehend when it is happening until it is over. I mentioned one example here. I was looking for a book. Many years ago I read a book about a musical prodigy. He was a young boy who was about 4 years old, and he was so talented and gifted, it was beyond belief. They compared him on the level of Mozart, if not higher, and all these tests. And so the book was written by a professor from Belgium studying that particular boy. So actually I have not read that book. I read about that book in literature about prodigies and gifted people, idiots savants, and I thought, well, I'll find that book. Well, it was published in 1926, and I couldn't find that book. I looked everywhere. There was no internet yet to search and anything. And I just asked every bookseller and all, and years went by, and I started to give up. I thought that book probably was never published. Maybe I'm mistaken. I'm pretty well, but I never lost the consciousness of finding that book. So every time I went to any bookshop, second-hand bookshop, I would go to a section of musical and looking, hoping that maybe one day. One day I've been driving in Ottawa, and as I'm driving, my eye caught a little bookshop. A small little shack, there, hole in the wall, so to speak. But something was telling me, go there. So I had to do actually conscious turnabout, U-turn. I had to go, turn right on the lights, go around, because I passed that bookshop, and then park somewhere. It took me about 15 minutes, 20 minutes just to get back to that bookshop. And I got into it, and it was a terrible bookshop. It was like an explosion in a printing shop. Piles of books on the floor, dusty. Guy was sitting there, and I don't think he was even conscious, that he's selling books. It was just something which normally a person would never dare to even look. But I go there, I put effort into it, so I thought, well, I looked through the shelving. There was no any labeling, there was no any indication where to find what. And I've been looking, and I forgot about this book, that I was looking for, It was just not a type of bookshop, but I always look for something interesting, psychic, whatever, philosophy. So I thought maybe, you'll find something. Well, about 5 minutes or so in the bookshop. I said, oh, that's it, let's get out of here. So I'm going out of that bookshop. And suddenly I sprained my ankle. I misstepped somehow, and instead of my ankle turned euphoric. So I just hit one of the shelvings on my right side. I was going that way out. As I hit it, it shook. And there was a bunch of books on the top shelving. They trembled, and one of them fell down, hit me over the head, fell in front of me. So being polite, I picked it up, and that was that book I was looking for. Just figure it out, what forces were needed, to lead me to that bookshop and set up this condition. But I was dumb to even realize what was happening until, and this happens, so we never dare to worry. Never be skeptical, never be sort of negative, because life will change. It's all your perception. You create a reality. It attracts success, attracts success. Failure attracts failure. Misery loves company. It is very important that you have to make changes in order for changes to happen. You cannot be in the same situation, doing the same things, and dreaming about things different. In order for you to have this thing different, you have to do different things. So you have to pull your bootstraps, move to the place, change the job, whatever is necessary in order that the chain reaction can start. You have to trigger it. It's like that story about the guy who was praying in a church, oh Lord, I'm a poor man and I wish I could win the lottery. And he prays like that, and finally he heard the voice, well, you can win it, but first thing you have to do, you have to buy a ticket, the God told him, and so the same is here, if you want to change, you have to do something for it to start with, and then you get all the help, That's what I'm trying to sort of come across. These forces are real. This is not a hypothetical concept of somebody who believes in it. This is something which I have tested and I've been observed, and there is a magic in creation, the magic of believing, the magic of knowing that everything is at your fingertips, just for asking. But we are too timid. We are so beaten up by reality, by experiences, that we don't dare to think that way. If I only had $20, I don't think in these terms, think about big things. And then smaller is a chicken feet, you're just happy it will come. But it's just how it goes. Faith is always important. I remember a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, so my wife decided to drop some used clothes to one of these women's centers, and that was on Sunday. And there was a drop of box, and so I drove her in there. As we got out, and I'm dragging these plastic bags of garments, there is a man standing by. He's some sort of a luggage next to him. He was obviously a worker, looked in overalls, Sunday afternoon, and he speaks to my wife. I'm basically telling her a sub story, how he was working, and then the guy who's supposed to pay him, have not paid him, and then he has no penny to his name, and then he has not enough money even to get home. He lives somewhere in Bonus, and then his wife is at home, and generally he looked very, very bleak. And I'm a sort of sucker for sub stories, so without doing anything, I gave him $20. I said, well, that should help you. And where do you live? And we'll drive you to your home. So we drove him there. Well, my wife was totally shocked. I said, what led you to do that? I said, because he was predestined. This man needed help. He was put to that place, of all places, where eventually nobody would go, and hoping that some miracle would happen. He believed so strongly in a miracle that I had to fulfill it. He was so happy. He couldn't believe it. $20, he expected 50 cents or something. To him, that was a big thing. But point is, I thought of it and I said, that's how the cosmic forces works. In order to receive, you have to give, and then you get back plentiful. In my life, I received a lot, so I try to give in order to reciprocate in cosmic law. But the point is that I was thinking about yesterday, there are some people who only receive, and because of that they would never give. They are always in need. You can give them forever and ever and ever, and you are lucky if you get a postcard or thank you eventually. There are others who always give, and by giving they never receive. Nobody gives them anything, because they already expect it from them, you know. And that's how life goes, you know. There's a sort of certain amount of stratification, and we have to align ourselves with the forces. And these invisible forces are influencing us for the good or for the bad. You know, we might not be aware of it, but by alliance, you already have identified yourself in a way. And so there are forces of creation and there are forces of destruction. There are certain people who inherently will destroy anything, you know. Bow-mouthed people, drag them down. It's their nature. They align themselves with that type of force. And there are others who are creative people in every circumstances, looking positively, you know, and this is not coming from them, because I've said, you know, our body doesn't think these ways, you know, there is no life to it, it's animated, it's our consciousness. And our consciousness is not isolated, it's connected. And the forces which contact our consciousness usually resonate with the level of consciousness we have at that time, you know, so you have to always try to better yourself.
When you're talking about following your, like, when you found a bookstore, something caught your eye, and you followed that, and this happens to me all the time, I follow where, I call that my instinct.
Yeah.
You know, the gut instinct. Are you saying that those things that we're led to are consciousness? How is that?
What happens is, the instinct is a term which somehow satisfies secular explanation of a certain behavior without putting further attention why it is like that way. Let's say animal by instinct, you know, they know right away, you know, who is their enemy, who is their friend. A little bird hatches from an egg and immediately knows, you know, and so we call it instinct. Well, I call it previous experience, because the spirits never dies. Spirit only take the embodiments. More you accumulate these experiences, you know, by being eaten before and things like that, you know. So when you wake up, if you have that experience, you immediately behave. That's through creativity. We are a creative person. You have developed that over the years, you know. That's why everybody is different. It's because we have lived different number of times. I do strongly believe that in order to grasp the life and develop consciousness, it is impossible to do it in one life. This is a very small thing, and that when we die, our spirit remembers not only the life that lived, but get a complete essence of the life until that point. And when the spirit realizes that it knows itself, what flaws are within, which needs to be fixed in order that it can increase vibratory level of consciousness and awareness. So he's looking for the opportunity to embody again and undo these wrong things, you know, and it's a very complicated thing. I would have explained to you much nicely if I had done on this lecture on this topic, how this works. But believe me, I do not believe that instinct is something which is inherent in a person without any type of other connections. I believe that instinct is a name for a sensitivity which is based on the previous experiences in the life of the spirit, you know. So more we have this so-called instinct, more we have this creativity, more we have this predisposition for certain skills, more we are genius-like in doing certain things, because we have done that so many times that we really become good in it, whatever it is. So we always have to remember that if we walk on the street, we are at home in our privacy, that we are never alone, that there is invisible world which connects with our consciousness and tries to influence us for good or for bad, depending on our level of consciousness and predisposition. It's the inclination. If we are within the inclinations to be good and to do good, then everything of the nature would influence that inclination. If we have inclinations to do bad, and all, then obviously that would sort of go that direction. So we have to always watch our inclination. What, as the Bible says, wherever is your treasure, there is your heart. Wherever is your heart, your treasure. So if your treasure is spiritual, and then obviously your heart goes into it. But all basically I'm saying is, you must never forget for a moment that we are alone. We are never alone. There's always some influence, whether we sleep, whether we walk, whether we are resting. There's always some influence trying to tell us something. And the more you learn to listen to it, the more in tune you become with it, because practice makes perfect. And more your life would reflect it. The hearing, everything, is part of the game. Because in a consciousness level, when spiritual zones are reached, there is no such a thing as time and space. So everything can happen in a different sort of dimension. So you don't need to be there physically. I'll give you an example. I have a friend in Czech Republic. About 2 months ago, I called and his wife picked it up and he was weeping. I said, what the hell happened? He said, our grandson, our beloved grandson is dying in a hospital. They discovered that there's a huge tumor on his brain. And it's so difficult to deal with it that he probably would be dead in a couple of days. They don't know what to do. They said they would try to operate. And she was weeping, 7-year-old grandson, everything they, invested, their emotions. I told the woman, don't you worry. I assure you that your grandson will be okay. The operation will come out okay. And within 2 months after, the most, 2 months after, he'll be back on his feet. And she thought I was joking. I said I would send my healing energies. I would connect with him every day and do everything possible to happen. So she said, thank you very much, but she thought it was all platitude. Exactly what I've said happened. Doctor suddenly said, there's a miraculous turn of events. We did operation, we thought it would end badly, but the guy just exceeded all the expectations. And they had all kind of reservation, but truly within 6 weeks in hospital, he was discharged. I was talking to them actually today. He's a happy-go-lucky boy, back in school and everything. They cannot thank me enough, but that's what I'm saying, it's not a question whether I was right or wrong. I had that confidence. I made a statement, and as I've said, once we utter certain things, we have a power to create a reality if we trust our utterances. So if you are truthful to yourself, if you, whatever you say, always do, as I've said a number of times, then you cannot lie. And because of that, things must happen. Otherwise, you will lose the creative power. So more you sort of say things and don't keep your words, more you say, well, I'll be there and you are not there, you are diluting your power of having control over your thoughts and creation of your destiny. So you try to always be careful before you say something. But when you say it, you know you must meet that expectation. In order that these words have a power, in order to fill the void you have created in your thought, you must do it. And then you have a tremendous force, and you just need to state it, and it happens. I was telling you a story about this lady from Portugal. She was the wife of one of the powerful local lords, who was a very cruel man, and he was getting these peasants of his to a dungeon and starved them to death. He just punished them that way. And she was a very compassionate woman, and she would be feeding them. At night she would bring them bread, so they lived. And so he was very worried. He said, how come these guys are still alive? They should have starved to death long time ago. Somebody said, because your wife is feeding them. So he decided to wait and catch her in the act. So he was waiting, and sure enough, she's going down the stairs, open, full of something, and so he pounds on her, what are you doing here? And she said, well, I was in a garden, I collected some flowers, and he says, flowers? Well, show me. So she drove her open, and it was full of flowers. See, because she was so honest, so truthful, she couldn't tell the lie, so the lie had to happen the way she said it. Otherwise, it would. And so it's become well-known church in Portugal, dedicated in her name, and the people going there, the pilgrimages, it's a well-known story, true story. The same is Jesus. If Jesus said something and it didn't happen, he would lost that creative power in him. And we are like that, but we have to learn to be truthful. More we are truthful, more reality we can control. That's why people who never keep the words and changing their minds and all, life is always controlling them. They can't control anything. They never know what would happen. They're frustrated and all giving up because they have never learned that it's within which projects itself is out. So you learn, develop your mind, develop discipline. try to sort of only promise certain things when you know you can keep the promise. So if you say, I'll be dead at 1, you have to be dead at 1. The more you do that, the more you realize it's easier to do, keep that promise, and then you have a creative force. And so that's why you need to develop any psychic powers, trying to develop your own character, develop your own synchronicity between your inner and your outer. Develop sort of yourself truly in an image of cosmic being, in a reflection of ultimum, which we consider divine or whatever, you know. But we have that power. Nobody was handicapped in that direction, but some people use it more than others. Some people don't care. They abdicate their own responsibility and decision making for somebody else to do it for them. Then they're complaining their life is no good. But they always tell me what to do, doctor, I'm this and that. You have to be strong, you know. So you can command, you can say to yourself, you know, I don't feel good, I'm ill. The reasons for it might be many, I don't understand them. But I have a power to overcome this problem because I don't want my body to be a master and my spirit to be a slave. Turn it around, you know, kick that body into order. Because body tends to run amok when the mind itself is disconnected with the spirit within. It's like a computer going haywire, you know, you have to really bring it back, focus. So, okay, fine, let's calm down, let's recap, you know, because these forces, this field, these little big energies and all, your mind can control and bring it back to order. And I guess that's why we know miracles, recoveries, people of strong faith, waiting for something to happen, son returning from the trip, daughter giving a birth, you know, people on a deathbed would live and live and live until that event happened. And when that happened, they expire because they have control after the purpose of their effort is gone. They don't have any more focus. But we can develop this focus in many ways. So if we give up, you know, nothing is worse than medical diagnosis. That's what I said. You are healthy until somebody else tells you you are ill. And that somebody, more authority it has, more believable it becomes. It's like going to a hypnotist. So when you go to this guy with a stethoscope and white coat, the whole uniform, the whole game, you are already conditioned. We need a couple of more tests, you know, and then he looks on it and says, well, you have this and that. From that moment, you know you are ill with this and that. And you start behaving to reflect exactly the reality. Until you know it, you live. You don't even know you live with this and that and all until somebody starts really poking into you. And with today technologies, and there is nobody who is healthy. Doesn't matter, you go to a doctor, you go through battery test, and you'll be horrified how ill you are when it all finishes, you know. Because they can now focus on individual neurons and God knows what, and some things they don't have it. But you don't need to worry. That's why animals who don't know anything about illness live till they die, you know. Get all, you know, I think we should learn that simplicity. Too much questioning, too much. It creates doubt. That's why when I was in a diving field, I discovered the best divers were the simplest guys, you know, who never questioned anything. What could happen to them? What physiological consequences would be if they got a wrong pressure or different gas. They just did their work and breathed under the conditions they were forced to do. And they survived all kind of traumas. I discovered people with certain education who started to read books about decompression problems, high pressure nervous syndrome, and this and that and all. They scared themselves to death because all the knowledge, what might happen, all these possibilities, bring their mind to the situations that they were the first one who panic, who behave wrongly, and generally were unfit to work in that environment. So I had to let go of people who otherwise were very nice, but they were too smart for their own good, you know. And that's in life too. We tend to sometimes dissect ourselves. We try to understand every minute deviation and all. That's the worst thing you can do. I think we just live. Our mind is powerful. If we believe, we know it happens. There was a guy many years ago, he proved that better than anybody else. His name was Phineas Sparkus Quinsby. I mentioned him probably. He was from Portland, Maine. And he was a founder of Christian Science, really. Mary Baker Eddy actually was his patient. She was dying, nobody could help her. He cured her, and she was so impressed with that she founded Christian Science because of it, you know. but he understood how the mind works. He did this fantastic experiment, I probably mentioned. He had a subject, who could be hypnotized, and in hypnosis he can see into people's bodies and their illnesses, so he can do perfect diagnosis, and he can also prescribe the remedies, He was only 15 years old boy, his name was Lucretius. And one day, medical doctor came with the patient to see this Lucretius, to diagnose that boy and determine what treatment should be given. And so the boy, Lucretius, looked through that patient in his hypnotic state and said, "This is wrong with you," and he described what's wrong with him, which doctor confirmed readily, because he was a medical doctor. And he said, "You have to use this type of tea to drink, and prescribe certain tea." Well, the boy drank it and got fully recovered. The only problem was the doctor was prescribed this tea for this boy before, and it wasn't working, the same tea. And that's when he made, the illness is in the mind, not in the remedy. And when you speak to somebody with eyes closed, it's much more believable with the eyes open, meaning that if you are in a trance, you might be only 15 years, uneducated boy, but people will take it more seriously than if some expert will tell you that. So what I'm trying to tell you is that there is a lot of mysteries as to these things work, but your faith, your belief is overriding all the things. You can drink the poison and be laughing. Shakers who drinks sometimes poisons and get bitten themselves by venomous snakes and all, because of their faith. They believe nothing can happen to them, and that's powerful enough and will negate any poisons. If I tell somebody under hypnosis, when you drink this thing here, it will be the most salty, the most bitter thing, and you give him a sugar solution, he would be shaking with bitterness and sadness. He can drop dead if you tell him, mind doesn't, not the body. Body is just an innocent bystander, Anything else? Any other question? Ask while I'm here. Neil was
Why is this important, John, the interaction that you have here with us?
Well, I think that we speak on different levels. One is a verbal, another is on a sort of level of a soul. So when you work, for example, in areas of reverse speech, I don't know whether you heard what is reverse speech. John Oates from Australia discovered that when we speak and saying certain things, there is the other way of communication which comes through the soul, so to speak. And that communication can be recorded and playback in a reverse speech on a magnetic tape. So when you play back the magnetic reverse speech, you discover that very frequently you speak one thing, and then there is the other speech coming from you which confirm or challenge what we have said. So, for example, OJ would be asked, "Have you killed that Nicole?" And say, "No, never touch her." And then you play it back and you can hear himself saying, "Yeah, I killed the bitch," So what I'm saying is that when we're communicating, I'm trying to establish not the verbal link, but a link from soul to soul, convey something which might resonate and create certain effects long after you've forgotten that we had that interaction and what I have said. I said, a long time ago, there were these two friars traveling in Middle East, going from one monastery into the other, the Father Joseph and Father Simon. Father Joseph was a very clever guy, so when he spoke, every monk was just wrapping it up. All the attention was what he was saying. He was appealing to their intellect. They understood, they were elated. The only problem was that they very quickly forgot what he was saying when he went somewhere else, and it was created very little. On the other hand, Father Simon, he was an incoherent babbler, and really, sort of, when he spoke, it wasn't really the same as the other guy. People were bored and all. But what was interesting, that somehow they remembered it for years to come, because he was talking to their hearts rather than to their minds. And what I'm trying to do here is talk about these things, to convey some of my feeling, my conviction and beliefs, but also sending out certain vibrations of love and compassion and harmony and something from higher level of consciousness, which I hope touches people depending on their level of perception and understanding, because I'm always surprised by people who come to me and say, I remember many years ago you told me something, I've heard you said something, and it changed my life, and I don't remember whatsoever I've said it. And even when I was leaving, I got a card from one of the employees, a woman I have never spoken to, I remember very rarely I ever spoke to, and she mentioned the episode which changed her life because of my interaction. So we never know what word, what key would unlock within us that something which we needed to start moving. We give us that conviction, yeah, maybe I should try that, maybe I should do that. But I want to give the strength of knowing that you have within you creative potential. You have within you all the answers, but you need to ask, rather than trying to dig them out manually, with a spade and shovel, whatever. You just have to sort of learn yourself. People don't know how to do that. You say, relax. Well, if you go to a master, it's very easy to say to a master, but the guys, it's not easy to relax. They are full of tension, and the same is with mind and everything else. We don't know how to relax. We don't know how to sort of let go. People's minds are sort of continuously in some sort of turmoil, even if they feel they are in rest. But through rest, through silence, it's something which we don't know even how it feels. When I came to Ecuador and I slept overnight in a little room, well, I couldn't believe the silence of a place. There was not any traffic, nothing. It was utter silence. It scared me. I was uneasy about it. I said, it's too silent for me, It took me 2 days before I started to understand that that's the true nature of things, And this is with us too. We think we are at rest when our mind sort of is idling, but to be really sort of at rest for a mind, it's a different condition. And when you reach that, a lot of things start to flourish. I said many times, everything which is growing grows in the darkness. It seems to me in the darkness it will germinate. The seed must go into the soil, and then it grows from there, Our soul has to be within sort of to mature and grow and develop. And very frequently we try to be too much upfront with certain things, We try to bring them to the utter world, And by doing so, they don't have a necessary nutrition, the spiritual nutrition. I was saying people don't perish because of lack of food as much as for lack of spiritual nutrition. So I call myself spiritual nutritionist, sort of to make sure that I feed other things than positive slogans, which normally are used for people, go-getters and all. I believe that soul is more important than anything else we have, and we have to take care of that first. And many people don't know what soul even is, and I wish I had more time to focus on it and talk about the inner spirituality versus external normality, about the natural man and a spiritual man. But maybe next time I'll pass by, one of these days, I might write a book. Now, one of my reasons why I'm retiring to Czech Republic, then I would sit down and write a book, call it What I Have Become or something like that, And there I put all my experiences, and the things I went through, the circle, from the young boy to a guy who retired, and what I have learned, and what it did to me, and sort of put out first-hand experiences rather than some hypothetical speculation, intellectually challenging sentences, just to show. Because I believe we need sometimes, not somebody to tell us what to do, but act as a light, as a beacon. And somebody can say, yeah, there is a one sign, there is that person, and we all pick our own ways, but sometimes to be in complete dark without any reference point, it's very, very difficult. But anyway, I don't know how it's our time. We still have about 10 minutes, so I would love to, if you have any questions, just continue questioning, but don't take what I say in any way as a sort of a recipe for anything. It's a rambling of a guy who retired, you have to remember, retired and retired after stroke. I have a lot of excuses, I can always, I'm not really sure what I was talking about, but the point is, what I'm saying is that we all have to be mindful of our own internal life. That's the eternity. That's what you know is good in this life. The fact that you are a good architect, good accountant, or a football coach, it's fine. But really, when you go on the other side, what good it is to you? Nothing. You have done nothing for yourself to prepare yourself. Everything we leave behind of all this ilk, you know. The only thing which we take with us on continual journey is character. The thing which we made ourselves to be. And we have to work to become better, to realize our potentials to the full. So when we are in the last stages of life, we can look, smile on our life and say, well, I believed it. I've done my dumbest and I'm happy with the outcome. I'm leaving behind, you know, friends, but I'm not leaving behind enemies, because we should never, ever be in such a state of mind that we have bitterness. We have to learn forgiveness. There is a book I just read by a U.S. lawyer, very successful trial lawyer, who discovered that more he was winning his cases, more he became unhappy, that his happiness somehow was fading. His victories were hollow, and there was a certain amount of disappointment, not only in him, but even the clients who won their cases. They've been fighting for something, they wanted to get justice, but when they got it, there was never the same sort of elation as one would expect. And he learned that his book is called Suing for Peace. You can get it in Mugen crystals in a John's bookshop. And he discovered that life is not fair, and sometimes it's better to forgive and carry on with life than to win for any cost. And by forgiving, you know, you never absorb the other person, this sort of whatever is to deal with, but at least you clear your soul, you clear your conscience, and you can carry on with living. You don't get disturbed by further and all. And sometimes, and he learned that, you know, so it just shows, you know, that very frequently, you know, in this litigation society, when everybody demanding the rights, everybody wants justice, people are less than happy. Even if they get it, it doesn't bring what you expect, you know. If the people learn more to be tolerant, more forgiving, and say, okay, fine, happened to me, shit happens, you know, well, anyway, I still have a light ahead of me, let's live it, let's make good out of it, you know. The other person, whatever, you know, somebody take care of it, his conscience, the other forces. I'm not here to sort of see him bleed, you know, even if sometimes we have this tendency. So as you get older, you become more and more tolerant. You know, when we are young, we are very, very harsh sometimes. Romain Rolland, French writer, very famous writer of 19th century, said basically, as I'm becoming older and older, I'm surprised how tolerant I've become towards other people. And that's the whole thing, you know, you learn sort of to forgive certain weaknesses, shortcomings, you know, even ills and wrongs done to you, you just, that keeps you sane, keeps you sort of even keel, and really, what can you do? You cannot get every justice, you know, it brings the happiness. Anyway, I think that we have had a pretty good evening, you know, it's 7 minutes to 9. If you have no other questions, I thank you very much for your time spending with me, listening to my different views, and I hope that you would remember me. Neil would have my email address, and you can get in touch with me through him once I get my email. And if you ever pass Europe and you happen by mistake to get on plane or something, anywhere near Czech Republic, you remember we have friends there, and all what you need to do is to contact me, say I'll be there, and remember me from the lectures. I'll be happy to see you and show you around. And generally sort of, I know one, because physically we have lost that bond, that spiritual link, you know, which we have probably developed over these years, you know. So thank you very much.
Yeah, let's give